What's up, JG623, owner and operator of TSW Wrestling, back for their hot round of power ranks. Of course, last week took off a little bit of IRL, a little bit of stream stuff, and plus, to be honest, wasn't much to change last week in these rankings, but this week, oh, how there are some major shakeups, including ya boy. We'll talk about that in a second. Let's get it. So, of course, a controversial week here in TSW, but, of course, some goodbyes here. We had Vibe sliding out the rankings, Craigie, D-Reg, Frosty, Tony, and Tiger Jet, all just due to being inactive or having other guys just getting wins above them. But a lot of these guys are in qualifiers and in big opportunities, of course, except for JG. It is official, JG has been suspended for a week for his actions against Charles Robinson. Now, of course, incidental contact within a match, arguing issues, always accepted in wrestling, but to go out of your way to assault an official is worth a reprimanding, and I'm understanding and accepting of this punishment. So I will not be present, unfortunately, this upcoming week as we are live in New York City, baby, because we're flying out of JFK for Bash at the Beach. Bash at the Beach, ladies and gentlemen. We are crossing the states. We are going sea to shining sea as Bash at the Beach will be at the biggest beach, the greatest beach, so to speak. We're talking Hawaii, baby. Bash at the Beach, live from Hawaii, 2 weeks from Thursday. New York this upcoming week. Make sure you guys get your tickets locked and loaded. But as we just touched on all those, of course, Frosty, Tiger Jet, and the Cruiserweight Classic will have some matches this week. Again, rumors swirling of a possible multi-man match instead, but we'll see how things shake out. You know, my powers be limited. You know, I can book some things, can't book the rest. I got to clear with management. They got to agree with it, make sure everything seems all hunky-dory, but I digress. Cruiserweight Class has been a lot of fun. All these triple threats have been exciting. So to me, I want to see more triple threats, and I want to see Clap have to defend in triple threats and multi-man matches only. Sorry about that. Anyways, moving right along, of course, and Tony and D-Rag, part of that hardcore chamber coming up. Let's dive into the official top 25. Kicking things off, we've got Swanee, of course, big win this last week in that Cruiserweight Classic, is officially moving on in that situation. Great battle there, of course. DJ getting involved as well is what it is there. By the way, one more honorable mention before we get all the way dove in here. Welcome back to Rowdy. Welcome back to Grim. Welcome back to Deke. All looking good there. And also Z-Rock. I love you, Z-Rock. Hope to see you back soon as well. But moving right along at 24 here. Bit of a slide, but no fault of his own. Great showing and a victory nonetheless. We're talking Claw. Gets that submission. Slides a little bit, but again, this is just a case where there are a lot of risers, a lot of fallers this week. And it's going to be an interesting one. A lot of unranked, a lot of goodbyes between last week being missed and this week where things laid out. Moving on here, big shout out 23, big underground win by Kopak Nurk here. Getting powerbombed the goddamn barricade while doing so, barely eking out that win. I hear Cap, a little banged up, but nearly not as bad as we've seen in the past. Cap may be back in a week or two, hopefully, and he has had a bad shake as of late, so interested to see if Cap can kind of, you know, rally the wagons, circle the wagons, I should say, of course, and see what's next for him there. And we got some more big changes here, of course. Huge hardcore victory for our guy Retro Yimmy, back in the rankings. Love to see him in action. Big shout out to one Pac-Man Yimmy there. Another one, big debut in the rankings here. We're talking Night Owl is undefeated currently. Fantastic steel cage with Brandon 2K. Rumors of a possible title match coming up. I think we're going to find out this week what title Night Owl is going for, whether or not it involves the Dargantics family. We're going to find out, but he is sneakily undefeated, ladies and gentlemen. Someone who was undefeated this year, at least, of course, previously, terrible losing streaks. But since changing divisions, we're talking Emma Rose falling down the rings a little bit after a backstage brawl last week failed. Leaving ringside, did take a loss, technically speaking, but driver's seat forcing that loss. But interested to see what is going to go down. It is official. It's going to be Emma versus Steph inside Hell in a Cell. So there's going to be no interference, no possible backup to help either side, which I do think could be a factor. I think an equalizer could have been due here for Emma, but instead Emma says, no, I want Hell in a Cell. I don't need backup. And we'll see how that shakes out at Bash at the Beach. Up to 19 here, we've got Rowdo again, of course, followed by Mecha, Mecha Head, both on winning streaks now. Both seem to be in the driver's seat against the Founding Fathers and Landmark against Finn. Blue not there this week, expected back certainly next week, or at least for the pay-per-view, one would assume. But this is a big challenge here. You know, Founding Fathers, 150 plus days with those belts. It's unstoppable. But this team of big dogs, they got some bite. Talking about big dogs, literally, we're talking the biggest, the thickest of Cheddar Daddios. Gonna stay in pat here in the back half of these, mid half of these rankings. Of course, we'll have a matchup next week, kind of warm himself up, but kind of causing some chaos with Prod's match this week, though Prod certainly got the job done in rather dominant fashion, if I'm in level with you there. But moving on here, we've got the mixed tag champions, Mrs. Stoney and Stoney the Stonies, Stonicus, baby. They've looked good so far as a team. An open division, so to speak. Curious what happens with these titles. We know an open challenge certainly coming up Bash at the Beach if we don't see a contendership forming next week. So we'll see how things go for the Vikings here. Talk about tag issues, talk about trios. Losing streak, despite being champions, of course, Meme and LeBron, both part of the Cruiserweight Classic, unfortunately didn't get the wins there, but luckily Animal kind of hanging on the sidelines right now, watching, waiting. Not only, Trios Championship, contendership yet to be decided, but kind of what's next for the rest of these guys in general. Trios division, always one that's interesting to keep an eye on, new groups forming, groups breaking apart. Always interesting to see what's next for that division. And this week, of course, a huge piece of news dropped, a big shocker at the end of that show when we were talking. King LBJ, he has been behind the attack on Boxie, and rumors are heavily implying that we will see Boxie versus LBJ at the Bash at the Beach. This is going to be an interesting one if that does indeed shake out. LB, always a beloved fan favorite, and losing, the heavyweight championship match at an event, getting pinned by Landmark, staring at the lights, his long-term career rival. This is, it's a tough position. I don't think I fault him. I understand how he got here, but I am curious where he goes going forward. We hear Craigie likely at his side throughout this, so we'll see how things shake out. There's a huge story going on right now in TSW. Talk about a big story. We talk about the reigning defending Universal Champion here, just outside the top 10 by a Scotian active this week. But we do hear contendership may be decided next week, certainly. Rumors of an open challenge by Big Time. He defended the title, successful defense against Swanee, something he was struggling to do with previous title reigns. So I think maybe we've turned over a new leaf, turned the page here for Big Time. And now, the top 10. We got Prodigy here, of course, big win over Smee, absolutely crushing him. Couple spears, the wasteland, absolutely dominant showing there. We'll face Ched in a couple weeks. Not sure the stipulation yet, but certainly in Extreme Rules at the very least, as these two have a whole lot of history right now here in TSW. And history with the BMI title, history with Ched, history with heavyweight title. We are talking Mr. Money in the Bank, 1/3 of the Trios champions, and Animal here. Kind of, like we mentioned, sitting back waiting right now. Don't have a contendership for the Trios title, and Box has been off TV, so, for a Mr. Money in the Bank, not like the worst case, you certainly can't lose a cash-in if the champ's not there to be cashed in on, but Boxy is coming off some attacks backstage, a little bit of controversy certainly surrounding the LB situation, and I think we've hit the point where Boxy ought to keep his head on a swivel when he comes back to TV. I think Animal, of course, beloved babyface. Mr. Money in the Bank, though, is a dastardly concept, though we still don't even know how he necessarily got there. Of course, some controversy involving the taken out of backstage brawl situation. We didn't see what happened with it, with Schmitty being taken out. Haven't really seen or heard from certainly since, so I'm curious how that ends up shaking out. But we do know he is just a hardcore title away from the Grand Slam. Now, mind you, he's not cashing in on that. Can't cash in on that. But we might be looking at the first ever two-time TSW heavyweight champion. We'll see if that is indeed the case. And talk about a multi-time champion, the best, the creme de la creme. We're talking Steph, 6-time women's champion. 130 plus days is where we're sitting right now. And, I was ready to book the rematch. This is another intro. You know, I was ready to book the rematch. Said, no, we'll do it at pay-per-view. Well, pay-per-view a month away. Well, Steph, keep padding those stats because, you know, when the challenger says, I don't want my rematch for a couple weeks, we're going to have to go with it. So Steph stacks those days, will be over 150 combined reign. And this one reign by then is going to be about a month over. So it's going to be a good spot for Steph inside the record books, inside Hell in a Cell. We'll see how that shakes out. You know, Steph and Emma both been pretty dominant this year, but certainly history favoring Steph, but neither on a winning streak. Both reset there. You got the +1 on the rankings, but there's gonna be an interesting one this upcoming couple weeks to see how this thing really progresses. Now, some people you haven't seen. Highest ranking, yeah, we've got Jen, we got Nuggie, undefeated Nuggie once again, by the way, the women's tag champions, rocking, rolling, cruising. This week, there will be a women's tag contendership. I do believe it's going to be two teams that have faced them before, but I think the two most qualified as it sits, the 603s, formerly the Queens, of course, rocking Huggies, and Mrs. JG, the absolute best, against the Roll, Dats, Bama, and Miss Hudat, both former tag champions, although Huggies hasn't held those tag belts, but looking to find out who the next challenger is for the Bash at the Beach against Jen and Nuggies. Now moving up to the top five. The top five controversy coming potentially. Landmark falls back one spot. You know, took a loss last week. Was set to slide a little bit. Backstage brawl be damn. You know, I can't really fault the guy too much for backstage brawls. But loss is a loss here. And down to the 5 spot. Tough spot for Founding Fathers, certainly. Lost their huge winning streak. Haven't lost in tag competition still, but Bash at the Beach is coming quick. And things are getting dicey in that division, ladies and gentlemen. Now, logic would dictate you put the partner with the partner, but they were split a couple weeks ago. They're going to remain split as Boxie here at 4. I thought I changed his picture. Clearly I did not. We'll get that fixed. He looks good like that. I mean, he looks good all the time. Let's be clear. But Boxie here, holding pat at 4, kind of bumping up and down 1, 2 ever so slightly. You know, he has been inactive, but the history he's had here in TS25 Plus, he's on our TV. You know, if you're still cutting promos, can't really drop you out the ring. Now, if you're inactive and you're inactive, that's a different story, but we're still seeing here in Boxie each week. So, big story here. Of course, we now know it's going to be Boxie, LBJ likely here at Bash at the Beach. Albrecht one side, Craigie on the other, even so to speak, but it's gonna be a fun one to watch, certainly. Changing of the guards in terms of heel-face dynamic in that match. A pair of faces the first time, not quite the same this time around, so I cannot wait to see that matchup. But here at the 3 spot, you could probably gather, Finn was 2, he dropped back to 3. Tough losses, tough loss, you know, here against Raw. Some controversy, certainly. Would Do Not turning his head, showing up, seems to be aligning with Raw Dog here, a guy who he does have some history with in that tag division, but looks like the Dog Pound has added one more doggy dog there. You know, we got Raw, we got Mech, presumably Jen and Nuggies kind of connected there as well, and looks like there's a 3rd man there, a 5th entrant, as Do Not appears to be aligned with the dark side there. Dying to see how that shakes out, and we can gather number 1's gonna be Young. We can, right? Spoilers. Shocker. Hasn't moved. Probably won't until he drops that belt, but number 2. That's fair. Yeah. As I was going through the list, and once we get to the top 5, I'm like, okay, booking committee, today, Junior. A little Porky Pig action for you there. I'm gonna leave that in because that was kind of funny. If you can't make fun of yourself, who can you make fun of? That's how it goes, right? I think. But clap. Gauntlet win. I tried to use what power I do have to stack the deck. Now, fortunately, I am suspended this week, so I've kind of lost my booking zhuzh here for a week, but I have put forth my word that I think Clap should have to defend the title each week. I think I've set the precedent as Cruiserweight Champion of doing so. So we'll see if he does defend the title this week. If not, Bash the Beach, Hawaii, see what Clap can do. The combined reign for longest champion is right there for him to grab. But, you know, 3 reigns be damned over 1 reign. It is what it is. But Can't wait to see what's next for Clap. He has been electric in that ring, undeniable, despite my issues with him in the past. I mean, it's like I said, undeniable. This guy is the best, the top of the top. On the mic, in the ring, electric. A little bit of credit where credit's due, sir. But of course, talking about credit where credit's due, you can't give any more credit, not enough credit to Yunk. 28-0, I do believe. 20. So 26. I think we're looking at 28-0 as we currently sit. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. He'll have he defends title every week. He'll have a match this week. If he wins, he steps into Chamber as champion. If he loses, of course, he'll enter Chamber as challenger. But even in Chamber, you can't count this guy out. He is absolutely electrifying, dominant as it gets. The tank, Yunk, undefeated, throwing some challenges his way. He keeps taking them out. Whether gauntlet, multi-man, singles, now Chamber, we'll see. But right now, Yunk, #1 with a bullet. Well, appreciate you guys for coming through. Y'all been the best y'all been too. Sweet. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, notification for all that good stuff, and I'll catch you next time for Elite Wrestling Shenanigans. Woo! Appreciate you. Bye.